We're going to bring in Lisa Diggs, and she's going to unmute whenever she can. I'm looking at a dashboard so I can see them, although the audience can't. So, Lisa, you are with Buy Michigan Now. Gosh, back when Matt and I were first starting out on the audio-only show, we had you in the old studio on Hilton where it just had
That's right.
one studio. Well, let's talk. I always assume there's people in my audience that don't know what the guest does. So let's start off with what is BuyMichiganNow.com.
Sure. So BuyMichiganNow.com is our digital hub for a statewide buy local campaign. So literally any Michigan-based business in any industry can join the campaign. So we can encourage people, whether they be an individual or an entity, to purchase from Michigan-based companies to keep our economy thriving, which is arguably more important now than even when we first started it. Who would have thought? I
Absolutely.
didn't think it could get worse than 2007 when I started it, but right about now is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. I still remember that 4-year recession. You kept saying it can't last any longer. It can't last any longer. And it lasted 4 years. That wiped a
Yeah.
lot of people out. So, but anyway, so you did this. And now let's talk a little bit about, I know you have a lot of folks in your directory. And why don't you talk a little bit about that?
We do. So there's a couple ways that organizations can join. They can any Michigan-based business can join at no cost at all and be in the directory, which I encourage everybody out there to do. And then when you are looking for products or services, and go to that directory because it's a good starting point to know. We hear a lot of times from even government entities where they want to make sure that they are keeping their dollars within the state if they didn't find someone in their own community, and it's hard to do. And at least if you go to our director, we already vetted them. We know at least the businesses that are in there are Michigan based, and there are criteria that they have to meet, and they check one of the criteria to say in what way they are Michigan based. It could be anything from operating entirely in the state to being a franchise that is owned by a Michigan resident. So there's a variety of them. So for people looking at it, when you look at a directory listing, you can see that criteria and decide if that's local enough for you. So that's a good starting point. And then we have paid memberships as well. With the paid memberships, there's a little bit more robust directory listing. And then also we spend a lot of time promoting those businesses in other ways through our social media and through our events. And there's discount opportunities. There's opportunities to do discounts to other members or to the public. There's a lot of things that we do to actively engage those businesses on a lot more levels.
And it's a pretty wide variety of folks. Now, for instance, our audience is pretty technology focused, but your audience is all over the place, right? You've got everything from mom and pop shops to big companies, right?
Yeah, it's really true. And it's, I think that's part of what makes it interesting. And one of the reasons that I like talking to you and getting the word out to your audience is because we do get a lot of questions about we have a lot of small businesses that need technological support and they don't know where to start. And unless they happen to meet somebody at a chamber meeting, they want to work with somebody local. If I actually posted something on LinkedIn one day that I was trying to find something that was tech oriented, and literally in the question said, looking for a Michigan-based company that does X. And I got 220 responses from India
Oh, of
and
course.
zero
Yeah.
from Michigan.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it happened to be a topic that we didn't have in our directory. And I thought, if one of those tech companies had just been in my directory, I could have avoided all this deluge of. So when you want to keep it local, and really, I mean, the amount that we can change our economy for the better if businesses spent more dollars locally. We talk a lot about consumerism, what's in your grocery cart and all of that, but really, there's a lot of businesses that host their website out of state, that buy their insurance from a national company, that have a web developer that's out of the country and do all this. And there are people here who can do all of those things. And so I encourage everybody to join the directory at least, and then and use it as a resource to try to find the other businesses that you should be pairing up with. And also, I take requests all the time. If something isn't in the directory and somebody sends an email and says, we're looking to do that, we helped a community find an architect to build a pier. I mean, we're willing to go out and look for companies to try to help fill something if it means that the project's going to stay inside the state. So if there's something you don't find in the directory, email and we'll see what we can find out.
So how many listings roughly do you have in the directory?
I don't know off the top of my head because we converted recently to a new, as I think a new website platform. And so some of the businesses are still accepting their new listings. So it's literally changing on a daily basis. But before the conversion, it was around 5,000. So I expect that we'll get back up into that range fairly soon.
Okay. What are some of the more popular categories? I know you probably look at your stats. So what seems to be, I mean, is it a bunch of foodies looking for food, or what is it exactly?
Food is very popular. Well, one of the things is, and I'm sure that you've heard me say this statistic many times, Mike, but if every Michigan household shifted just $10 of our weekly spending to Michigan-made products, collectively, we would put $38 million a week back into our economy, which is about $1.9 billion a year. So because we talk about that a lot, one of the literally easiest places to start for most people is change their brand of potato chips, buy locally grown celery, that kind of thing, switch to a local wine. And so a lot of what we get interest for are those things. But those are the businesses that tend to join quickly, but we get questions all the time. I just answered a guy this morning wanting to know why he couldn't find cherries in his local store. Why are the cherries all from Washington? Why can't I get local cherries?
Yeah, considering that Traverse City is having the cherry festival right now, right?
Yes. However, one, we mostly grow tart cherries, which are better for pies than just, necessarily eating. And two, this is the second year that we're having a bad cherry crop because of weather. So it does make it more challenging. But those are things that I pay attention to that your average person probably doesn't. One of the reasons that we can answer some of those kinds of questions.
So your new website, what sort of new features are you going to have that you didn't have on the previous one?
So we've identified 9, we call them niches, but 9 industries that we think that we can have some input in, and each has a dedicated page. And so they are food, beverage. We'll see how good I am. Food, beverage, art, style, tech, tourism, mobility, and retail. And so on each of those pages, there's always there's a business page that has articles about any industry, but on each of those pages, there's a calendar that's specific to events happening within those industries. There's some background and history of those industries, and there are articles changing all the time that are specific to those industries. And the reasons that we identified those particular industries is because those were either where a lot of dollars were being invested and larger companies were coming in, or they were areas where consumers can really make an impact. And so that was a lot of what people were coming to our site looking for. So that's a new thing. There's also a larger calendar that you can look at that's just events from all over the state. Every month on our tourism page, we do 12 things to do this month in the state, and we find 12 of the more interesting events that are happening around the state that might not be something that everybody knows, like the Cherry Festival, but might be something more like one of my favorites is an event in February up north where they push outhouses down a hill. That's a fun one.
Hopefully no one's in those outhouses, right? So that would not be an experience I would want to have.
No, but it's a very Uper event, I would have to say. But so we look for things that are a little bit different. If somebody out there likes to write and wants to, author an article, we're interested in that. It's hard to be everywhere in the state. And we, again, on the tourism page, give people a chance to write about why somebody should come visit their town. So if you're a small business owner in a town and you would benefit from more people coming there, then maybe you want to be the person that writes that, tells us where to have brunch and where to have dinner and what park to go to when we're in your town. So that's a new feature that's on the site. There's a lot more content than there ever was before. So I encourage people to actually spend a little time and bounce around and look at, if you like traveling around the state, we have a ton of tourism related articles that give you suggestions on, there was one just this last month about places to go in the thumb. And even I, who spent a lot of time doing this, for that article, went to some places I had never been to before. There's a state park that only gets about 600 visitors a year.
Really?
That's in the Thumb area, and it was interesting and different. And I thought, well, okay, we got to check that out. If we're going to write about this, let's find out what this is.
Sure.
So there's a lot of cool stuff, especially during the summer. We talk a lot about beer. We talk a lot about wine tasting. We talk a lot about barbecue foods. We talk a lot about tourism. So a lot of that kind of stuff. It's a good site for that.
And this is Craft Beer Month in Michigan, right?
It is, in fact. So there's my recommendation, if anybody out there is an aficionado of beers. There are some that are not, or people that don't drink anymore. But there are just a lot of great events that happen. We do have events coming back, and there are a lot of great events that happen during Craft Beer Month. But it's a great time. You know, a lot of local markets now will allow you to go in and buy a 6-pack of 6 different beers from 6 different companies,
Huh.
and put that together. It's a great time to do that. If you're having people over, celebrate the fact that it's Craft Beer Month. Your friends probably don't know, but have some people over, get a selection of different beers that nobody's ever had, get some smaller cups so everybody can taste different ones and find out what you like. And certainly there are, at this point, I think we have well over 200 breweries around the state. So there's one near you. You can go in, meet the brewmaster, do some tasting. They love talking about their products. They love explaining why they chose to do what they do. And I think our craft beer industry is probably the most tight-knit industry in the state. I mean, as much as they compete with each other for obvious reasons, they realize that we are stronger the stronger they all are. And so they help each other and support each other, because we need to be the great beer state in order for them all to thrive.
Yeah, in my hometown of Grand Rapids, actually Wyoming, but I say Grand Rapids because no one knows where Wyoming is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big craft beer town now.
It is, and craft beverages in general in Grand Rapids. And as a matter of fact, people can go to experiencegr.com, which is Experience Grand Rapids, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and there's a craft beer pass. And there's a craft cocktail pass and things like that. There's things that they can do where you can download these for your phone, and then when you visit different places, you check in and you get discounts for future visits. And Grand Rapids does that better than anybody else. So if people are planning a trip there, I highly recommend checking out those things that are available.
All right, a few minutes left, so let's talk a little bit about to sign up. I know you have a free service, but you also have paid services. Why don't you talk a little bit about that pricing?
Yeah, so for a business to become one of our paid members, the lowest level is only $100 a year, which is basically a cups of coffee a month. And so we highly recommend that. There's a couple of things that you're doing. One, think of it, I like to tell people, think of it as a co-op. We are continuously promoting, changing people's minds about where they're spending their dollars. So every business that chips in for this by buying their membership gives us more funding to go around the state and say, you know, buy Michigan products. These are the Michigan-based businesses. Go to this directory to find them. So that's one part of it. And then, as I said, there's links to their website. There's the opportunity to author articles. There's an opportunity to upload recipes, if that's part of what you do. There's the opportunity to add events to our calendar. If you are having events at your own place, if there's a networking event that you're hosting, all those things can get added. We do a monthly newsletter, as I know you know, and there are events that we feature in that as well. So we always put priority on events that were submitted by our members.